Purchasing a home in Manhattan is not for the faint of heart. If you actually want to enjoy living here, having a strategy before you enter the market is one of the most important things that you can do to set yourself up for success. This video is designed to help you make smart, confident decisions so that the lifestyle you are buying actually aligns with what you imagined. Manhattan real estate is anything but casual. When you're purchasing here, you are typically purchasing in a building, and a building really becomes your community. These communities have rules that protect the values of your property. So you have to get used to, just like any other community in the suburbs, maybe they say you can't have pickup trucks or you are unable to ride motorcycles in the community, the buildings have adapted rules for urban living. But that is just the beginning, and we're just getting started, and there is a reason why our market operates the way that it does. Our very first conversation with you is going to be about your lifestyle. How do you envision your life when you're living here in Manhattan? Because that is going to dictate everything. We are going to want to know about your job, whether you have school-aged children, and if you're thinking of public or private schools, what neighborhoods you might have identified as areas that you would like to live, because that also tells us a lot about your personality. So we are matchmakers in many, many ways. We are going to match the perfect neighborhood for your lifestyle. Once we dial those things in, we are going to also talk about budget, because we need to align your budget with your lifestyle, and there becomes some trade-offs. So that's kind of our first conversation that we're going to have before we get into any of the technicalities about buying in Manhattan. If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather Domi, and I lead the Heather Domi team here in Manhattan. We love helping buyers relocate to New York City. I moved here in my mid-30s, so I completely understand how overwhelming this process can be. So please don't hesitate to reach out at the number below or send us an email, and we will gladly help you figure out how to make this move your best move. We have already touched upon transportation and commuting, but let me tell you, this is one of the biggest trade-offs that you are going to have to consider when you're relocating to Manhattan. I always say one of the greatest luxuries of living in New York is having the ability to either walk to work or walk your kids to school. It definitely impacts your quality of life, and so that is one of the things that we really want to focus on from the get-go, because it has a huge impact on your day-to-day life. So I always say, don't ever underestimate the importance of the commute, because it is what you do every single day. You are thinking about, from the moment you wake up, how long it's going to take you to get to work, how long it's going to take you to get the kids to school, whether or not it's raining, snowing, cold, windy, whatever the conditions are outside, you have to dress. So it becomes a lot of decisions before you even walk out the door. The next thing we need to get into is the quality of life math. This is where we align your budget with the neighborhoods that we think are going to work for your life. Now, let me tell you, this is where it starts to become a little bit of a puzzle, where we have to fit the pieces together so that everything works together. Your budget isn't what you're approved for. At the end of the day, we are trying to make sure your budget aligns with your lifestyle so that you can enjoy this city without resentment. And I say that because, having been somebody who moved here in my mid-30s, unexpectedly, never ever wanting to live in New York City, I really had to right-size my mind. I had to make sure I was willing to embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly so that I could really enjoy this city. So that's one thing that I really want for you, is I want you to be able to have the best experience ever from day one. And if you have no idea which neighborhood's going to be right for you, we have an incredible guide launching in New York. So to access, scan the QR code above, and it will take you to this guide. It has every single neighborhood, all kinds of information I wish I had when I was relocating here in my mid-30s. And then there's a whole section in the back on how to acclimate to this great city. When we first started, I said Manhattan real estate is anything but casual, and let me tell you, this is really important to understand. We are dealing with co-op boards and board interviews. We're dealing with sellers who are evaluating your financial worthiness before they even accept an offer. And we have an order of operations that is unlike any other market. And it is the same no matter the deal. So let's get into those details because it can be or seem a little overwhelming, but that's what we're here for. We break it down and make it as simple as possible. We already touched on budget a little bit at the beginning, but now we're going to do a deep dive and we're going to talk about the 2 reasons why we really need to have financial disclosure up front. First of all, you're going to have to come to the table with a mortgage pre-approval. So you're going to have to work through all of that with your preferred lender so that you have the paperwork. As soon as we find the right property, that pre-approval is needed to go in with your offer. So that's pretty similar like any other market. You really need to have a pre-approval with an offer. Second, and this is what's nuanced for New York City, we need to have a balance sheet for you, so your assets and liabilities, including your income, because we have to submit it with the offer. It gets evaluated by the seller, so the seller knows what kind of deal they're getting into, especially if it's a co-op, because co-ops have financial requirements, and we're always going to make sure that if we are looking at a co-op, we feel confident that you're going to get approved. So again, 2 reasons. One is for the co-op and their financial requirements, and the second is for the seller, because if we get into a best and final competitive bidding situation, the seller often is going to consider the financial profile before they accept the offer. Quick check. If you have any questions as you're watching, drop them in the comments below. I read them all. I respond to them myself. And it helps me figure out which videos to make for you next. Now we're going to get into one of the most confusing elements when purchasing in the state of New York. New York is an attorney state, but it's also very different when you buy in New York City because we are also not members of the National Association of Realtors. So we are not filling out forms for you to sign as a contract. What's going to happen is you're going to hire an attorney prior to an accepted offer. The seller's attorney, once the offer is accepted, is going to draft up a contract, send it to your attorney, and your attorney is going to have 7 days to complete due diligence. The attorney's due diligence is all about risk exposure. They are really going to be looking at the building's health and wellness, making sure there's going to be no risk buying that property. There's 2 things to also know when you're buying in New York that are a little bit different. First of all, inspection and contingencies are not a thing whatsoever. You're going to be inspecting during the 7 days prior to signing the contract. And then the second thing is about mortgage contingencies. Mortgage contingencies are very dependent on the market. If it's a strong seller's market, it's very difficult to get a mortgage contingency. Right now, we are kind of neutral. It can fluctuate between buyers and sellers, so we do occasionally see them, but just depends on what's going on in the market. Once everything aligns, you're going to sign the contract, put 10% down, and then the seller is going to countersign. Once the contract is fully executed and you are in a hard contract, you are obligated to close. And if you don't close, you're putting your deposit at risk. I know this all might seem like a lot. We have a great buyer's guide. So now scan this QR code and it'll take you to our buyer's guide, which will break all of this down so that you have the cliff notes. So honestly, if you have any questions, please feel free to call us at the number below or send us an email because we're happy to explain and also discuss your personal situation. So the next thing we have to talk about is how long it takes to close and how much time you need to plan to be able to get settled. If you're buying a condo, you should plan for 60 to 90 days once you identify the property and have an accepted offer. If you're purchasing a co-op, it takes a little bit longer because the board interview process. You could plan almost up to 120 days, depending on the time of year. Sometimes if it's in the summer and it's August, they don't have board meetings. Or if it's December and the holidays, they might not have a board meeting. So you really have to give yourself some time if you're purchasing a co-op. And if you're planning around the school year, we should talk about that because you really want to obviously get settled before September, so we need to back out of the timeline. That's where we get into the weeds and we start to get really specific with what works for you. So keep in mind not only your timing and how long it takes to be able to close once you go to contract, and you also want to consider the market cycles. So we definitely have a heavy spring market. We are a little bit slower in the summer, not as much inventory. There's a fall season, then the holidays, not much inventory, a little mini winter season, and again, we're into spring. It is very cyclical here in New York City, but there's always a plan. No matter what, whenever you're coming, we'll figure out something so that we make it work. There are a few nuances we haven't discussed, and I'm not going to get too in the weeds about this, but just a few things for you to consider when you're moving here and you're figuring out your budget. In all of the buildings in New York City, condos or co-ops, there are additional fees on top of your mortgages that you have to account for. So in a condo, you're going to have common charges and real estate taxes, and in a co-op, you're going to have maintenance. So in a co-op, your real estate taxes are included in your maintenance because you own shares in a corporation, and the corporation as a whole is taxed. So then they divide it out based on how many shares you have. So those numbers usually work out $2 to $4 per square foot. In a condo, combine those two numbers, divide it by the square footage, and it gives you that number. So again, $2 to $4 a square foot, that's what we're looking for. Anything over that is a high number. In addition to these common charges and real estate taxes, you're also going to want to think about the style of building that you want to live in. We have pre-war buildings, we have post-war buildings, we have new construction. Each one has their own identity, their own trade-offs, and a completely different experience for living in New York City. Each of these options are great, but they're very specific, and we're going to talk about that with you when we speak one-on-one to help you decide what's going to be right for you. Hopefully this all doesn't sound that overwhelming to you, but if it does, that's what we're here for. We're here to make this process as simple and stress-free as possible. I know what it's like to be overwhelmed when moving to New York City. I did it myself nearly 20 years ago. That's why I love helping people relocate here, making this process as seamless and stress-free as possible. So please contact us at the number below or send us an email. We're happy to help you and answer any questions that you might have. And don't forget, we drop new videos every single week.